I'm supposed to be his example. But I spoke with him a few days ago and he said to me about this egg thing. He said, Dad, he's a cheat. Okay, and we're promoting the fight. And these people have me under a great deal of pressure. I'm Great Britain. That's who we are. I don't care what they're doing. We have to bring them into a straight line. Because where this country is going with this behavior, the warriors.
The upcoming bout between Chris Eubank Jr. and Conor Benn, scheduled for April 26, 2025, at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium in London, has reignited a legendary family rivalry that once captivated British boxing in the 1990s. As anticipation builds, Chris Eubank Sr., a key figure in that original saga, has expressed serious concerns about the fight, citing weight discrepancies and potential risks to fighter safety.
Oh mate, that'd be legendary. That'd be legendary. I'd love that.
We know that your dad has had two very, very famous fights in the 90s with Chris Sr. You're, 3 or 4 weight divisions away from Chris Eubank Jr. at the moment, but you are 19 and you will continue to grow and you will continue to put weight on. What chance of you fighting Chris Eubank Jr. at some point in the future?
Oh mate, that'd be legendary. That'd be legendary. I'd love that. You could, but there's so many obstacles I've got to get first before we can even consider that. Yeah. So far it's just a fantasy for the British public. But who knows? Who knows what the future holds?
In the early 1990s, British boxing was electrified by the intense rivalry between Chris Eubank Sr. and Nigel Benn. Their opposing styles and fiery personalities led to 2 unforgettable encounters. Eubank Sr. secured a 9th-round TKO in 1990, while their 1993 rematch ended in a dramatic draw. These fights defined an era and laid the groundwork for a generational sequel. A clash between their sons Chris Eubank Jr. and Conor Benn has long been discussed. The original 2022 attempt to stage the bout was derailed when Benn failed a drug test, testing positive for a substance known to boost testosterone. Benn blamed the result on excessive egg consumption, a claim met with both ridicule and skepticism. Despite the controversy, Benn was eventually cleared by UK anti-doping, paving the way for the rescheduled showdown.
An entertaining matchup.
Why is it a mismatch?
Because of ability, because of weight classes. Chris Jr. is a middleweight and a super middleweight. He's naturally a super middleweight. So, he's having to starve himself to come down and, with all the catch weights and all of this stuff, it's a mismatch. He is operated at world level. He's been in with the likes of George Groves and, the list goes on. It's a mismatch in ability and weight class.
How is your relationship with your dad now?
We're in a weird, we're in a strange place in our lives in the moment. It's very hard to kind of, go through an entire career being with your old man and then to not have him around anymore in terms of, the boxing side of things. But I just felt that that's what I needed. I felt like I wanted to, and I would say this to him as well. I was like, listen, I'm going to write a book one day. The book can't be everything that my dad said I should do. I did. Mm-hmm. I've got to find out on my own. I've got to make my own choices. I've got to write my own future.
Chris Eubank Sr. has been one of the most vocal critics of the upcoming bout. His primary concern centers around the fight's catchweight agreement of 157 pounds, 3 pounds below Eubank Jr.'s typical middleweight limit. He argues that such a drastic weight cut could severely impact his son's health and performance. The former champion has accused promoters of valuing profits over safety. In a bold statement, Eubank Sr. declared, "You tried to murder my boys, I'm coming for you." His fears are not unfounded. Extreme weight cuts can cause severe dehydration, impaired cognition, and increased risk of injury, all of which could prove dangerous in the ring.
For 8 pounds? You better watch out, dreadlocks. You better watch out, because we are come for you. Sorry. It's my mother's tongue again. It comes through. You'd better watch out, because we're not playing. We're real, and we are a terror. And the procedure will be parliamentary. Rastafari.
Eubank Sr. didn't just criticize the fight, he pleaded for it to be stopped. In a direct appeal to both Conor and Nigel Benn, he urged them to reconsider, emphasizing the life-threatening risks of fighting at 157 pounds. At 33 years old, he argued, Chris Jr. would be endangering himself by dropping below his regular weight, even offering to cover any financial penalties to cancel the fight. Eubank Sr.'s pleas were rejected. Nigel Benn remains firm that the fight should go ahead. Eubank Sr. has continued to accuse the promoters of recklessness, saying they are pushing forward with the bout under dangerously unsafe conditions.
For the Metro newspaper, and in that interview, Conor walked in, and I said to Conor, and I was saying to Nigel, please, don't do this. You know what it is to, my son is 33. For him to drop 3 pounds beneath 160 puts his life in danger. And Nigel said, sorry, if he doesn't take the fight, if he's above that, then he's going to have to pay a forfeit of £300,000. And I said, well, I'm very happy to pay that. So please, stand down. I was speaking to both of them. Nigel said, no, he's not standing down. He said he signed a contract. He's a grown man. So I said, Nigel, please, my king, please, don't do this.
Beyond his opposition to the catchweight, Eubank Sr. has offered alternatives. He believes Conor Benn should remain in his natural weight class welterweight at 147 pounds and pursue champions in that division. He even suggested Benn face Harlem Eubank, Chris Jr.'s single quotes cousin, who also fights at welterweight and has recently called out Benn. These suggestions have brought added attention to the Eubank family dynamics, exposing tensions beyond the ring.
My concern for Eubank is the amount of weight this boy's got to cut to come down to, I think the fight's made at 160 pounds, is that right? Right. So he's got to come down from 100, from whatever his walking round weight is. Let's say he walks around at 180 pound when he's out of training. That's like 20 pound weight difference, right? That he's got to lose. It's not safe. It's not. He can't possibly be at his physically strongest. He can't, and he's really putting himself on the line, right? Because when your weight weakened, I know I've been weight drained in fights previously, so I'm speaking from a point of reference. When you're weight drained, it doesn't matter what you eat on the day, it doesn't make you stronger.
Despite their strained relationship, Eubank Jr. has expressed his desire to have his father in his corner for the fight, citing the emotional weight of continuing the family rivalry. However, Eubank Sr.'s public opposition has only deepened the rift between them. The situation escalated during a press conference where Eubank Jr. smashed an egg on Benn's face, a reference to the 2020 drug test controversy. The stunt earned Eubank Jr. a £100,000 fine and led to a physical scuffle between the fighters, increasing media scrutiny and public intrigue.
Boxing Media Hub here with some breaking news. So Chris Eubank Jr. has been fined £100,000 by the British Boxing Board of Control for slapping Conor Benn with an egg. So who's the one with egg on their face now?
Where's that money going? Because £100,000 is the kind of money that can make a huge difference to a huge amount of boxing clubs up and down the country that are the grassroots of the sport, that are getting kids off the street that need to be off the street and onto the straight and narrow. Boxing clubs are, for many people, more than just a sports club. They are social workers, they're therapy, they're all these things, and yet that £100,000 is never going to be put into their pocket.
Former British boxer Paul Smith found the egg incident amusing. Speaking candidly, he said he laughed his head off when Eubank Jr. slapped Benn with the egg. Smith described the act as poetic justice, pointing out the irony considering Benn's earlier claims that egg consumption caused his failed drug test.
That slap, I personally do not call it a slap. I call that a marketing stunt, and that have helped to publicize or market or sell the fight way more, because Chris had to do that, and he basically made the fight very, very personal. And now we don't have to say it's because of their father's legacy, but hey, Conor will say, you slapped me and you tried to embarrass me, and then now I have to fight and show you that I am a better fighter and boxer than you. But I feel like also that is the best 100k Chris Eubank Jr. have ever spent. Listen, I would like to know your ringside opinions in a comment. Let me know what you think about that.
However, not everyone shared Smith's amusement. Liam Smith, another professional boxer, commented that while the act may have been humorous to some, it was inappropriate in a professional setting and did little to reflect the values of the sport.
It's a fight that I'll be watching. I'll be there, obviously, on the night. But if I wasn't there,
what have you made of the antics?
I would be watching it.
What have you made of the antics? Do you think? I mean,
I've seen worse. I said about Chisora in throwing the table towards Dylan White. I was filming it. I was sitting in the front row of the press conference. I was at the press conference, and I was laughing and joking about it. And afterwards, it was okay. It was a bit of a rant by Chisora, but we expect that from Chisora. I'm not going to lie, when it happened, I laughed my head off. I absolutely laughed my head off.
I did too.
I thought it was quite poetic. I thought what happened was quite funny. It wasn't dangerous. It wasn't something that, like, I had someone, Nigel, saying I thought he glassed him. I can understand by the noise of it. Things happen fast in the heat of a moment. I get it. But afterwards, all's well that ends well, really. And it's created a lot more fuss about the fight, a lot more column inches, a lot more press and publicity. All publicity is good publicity, but then the board come in and think they can find a fight at £100,000 for it, and that's their prerogative, but it didn't sit right with me.
Nigel Benn was notably displeased by the incident. He condemned the act, saying such behavior damages boxing's reputation. He emphasized the importance of professionalism, especially in high-profile promotional events, despite his own history. With Chris Eubank Sr., Nigel stressed that the spotlight should remain on the fighter's skills and discipline. Reflecting on the egg-smashing moment, he admitted feeling a protective instinct for Conor, but acknowledged the importance of letting his son face challenges independently, seeing it as an opportunity for growth.
I'm just glad that Conor didn't get hold of him. That's why I'm glad that Conor didn't get hold of him, because Conor was going, son. But then I had the opportunity to go, and then the big bounce come and chop my head off of me.
Responding to the hefty fine, Eubank Jr. expressed frustration. "It's definitely an unusually high number," he said. "There have been guys who've done way worse and been fined a lot less." He defended his actions as symbolic, calling the egg slap a stand against cheating. It wasn't just a slap, it was a statement, he asserted. It told the world that if you cheat, you'll be exposed.
I'm sitting up here today on a stage with two of the scummiest characters in boxing, in my opinion. A drug cheat and a man who did everything in his power to help him get away with it. So me throwing an egg at somebody who absurdly claims that is the reason why he failed 2 drugs tests because of contaminated eggs, I think that's light. And I think that's deserved. He deserved the embarrassment of what happened. You know, if I had an opportunity to do it again, I would.
In a June 2023 interview, Eubank Sr. opened up about his disappointment in his son's career decisions and training habits. He shared a conversation with former heavyweight champion David Haye, who told him that Eubank Jr. had stopped sparring and was surrounded by yes men. Eubank Sr. criticized his son's arrogance, saying, "When you shut your ears, what arrogance gets you is what it got him in his last fight." Their fractured bond became clear when Eubank Jr. replaced his father with Roy Jones Jr. as his trainer. Eubank Sr. lamented the shift, believing that without his guidance, his son would never have reached the financial success he enjoys. "Without me, he wouldn't have made the money he's made," he claimed.
You lost to a fighter called Billy Saunders. You shouldn't have lost that fight. You lost it because you were disobedient to the plan that I gave you. You started fighting after the 6th round to prove to me that you could beat him at any time. I expressly put down in solid words, you are not fighting Billy Saunders, you are fighting the promoter. And you will not beat the promoter. As they say, you'd have to knock him out to get a draw. That's the humor they use, that's the influence of the promoters. And you gave him the first 6 rounds. You know, as far as I'm concerned, the fight belongs to Harlem the Gold Eubank, and you should be fighting Billy Joe Saunders and record a win over him, which you should have in the first instance. What more can I say?
Chris Eubank Jr. has also addressed the rift with his father. He pointed to professional disagreements, personal loss, and a desire to forge his own path as reasons for their separation. A major sticking point was Eubank Sr.'s public disapproval of the Conor Benn fight. "We don't talk," Eubank Jr. said. "He's shown no interest in my career or in me for a long time," he added. "As someone who's lost a son, it's insane to act this way toward your remaining kids." Determined to establish his independence, he said, "I felt it wasn't working anymore. I've learned enough to do things my way."
He was not happy with that decision. That's the start of it. Then you have the situation with my brother passing away. That affected him in a deep way, affected all of us.
I talked to him around that time, and I could tell he was profoundly impacted by that.
That's right. Mental health is a real thing. That incident, coupled with the fact that we were already not seeing eye to eye, destroyed a large part of the relationship. And it still hasn't seemed to have recovered, unfortunately.
Have you made any attempt to get back together with him?
Of course.
Has he rebuffed that?
Renowned boxing analyst Teddy Atlas shared his insights in an interview with pro boxing fans. He called the fight a banger, noting its emotional and historical weight due to the father's rivalry. He believes Eubank Jr. will try to keep the fight at range, using his speed and angles, while Conor Benn will look to pressure and attack the body. Atlas supports Eubank Sr.'s boycott, acknowledging the dangers of weight cutting and the father's genuine concern. Only a fighter knows his own limits, Atlas said, but a father knows the risks too.
It's got the history with the fathers, the two fathers that were just iconic British fighters, great fighters. So it's got everything to draw the people in, to watch that fight. I mean, you got one guy, if I was to real fast give my thoughts on it without having gotten into it too much, Eubanks, wants to probably keep it on the outside as much as he can and use his skill sets to,
let Conor go and have his illustrious career here in the United Kingdom and then in the United States, because he beats them all. That's how fantastic I think he is. I've always backed you, Conor. I've always backed you. Okay, you're sensible. If it's true that you've said things about me which are not complimentary, I don't mind that. I'm looking at the people that you're around. Here it is. You know the spirit world. That's how I know you're an honest man. The people around you are part of a gang. It's a team thing. You're the mark. Okay, the only person who's going to look out for you is you, supposed to be your dad, and people like me. You can trust me. Yeah, you've seen me get up in a fight I can't win and walk back into the fire. You can trust me. I'm not going to give you any, I'm not going to mislead you. I'm a lawman.
In training, Eubank Jr. has made key adjustments. He has transitioned from Roy Jones Jr. back to his father as trainer, though reports suggest this arrangement remains uncertain. Jones, for his part, warned that Benn's punching power should not be underestimated, referencing his knockout win over Chris Eubank. Financially, the stakes are high. Eubank Jr. has accepted a 55-45 purse split in his favor, though Benn has yet to fully agree. For both men, this fight represents more than just a win, it's a potential gateway to future megabouts, including one with Canelo Alvarez. The Eubank-Benn showdown is more than a clash of fists, it's a clash of legacies, ambitions, and unresolved family tensions.